This is a time budget which was designed to achieve three functions. The first is to ensure that we meet KPIs. It allocates time to particular areas of work to ensure that KPIs are achieved and that everything is addressed and given that it's due priority. It's got a second function as a developmental tool for team leaders and trainers to get together and discuss where KPIs may be lacking, where time is allocated, how that might be adjusted to achieve better results. And it has a third function, which is to assist team leaders and upper management to allocate time and to design workloads, and also to check whether or not the workload allocated to a particular position or function is adequate to achieve the quality results they achieve. So let's start looking through the time budget. We're starting up the top here on the top left, and we're looking at how many work weeks are there in a year, and we're assuming that there's 52. That gives us over here to the right 260 work days. Then we take off 11 days public holidays, reducing our work days over here to 249. Then we take off 31 days to account for leave, sick leave, those sorts of things. We're now down to 218 work days in a year. Then we take off time for lunches, tea breaks, etc., another 8 days. We're actually down to a functional 210 work days in a year. So now we know how many work days we've got. We need to allocate functions to the time we've got. So what we've said down here in looking at our role focus is that training and assessment is going to take up 60% of the time. This is looking at an online trainer. 60% of their time will be spent in training and assessment, 30% will be spent in administration, and 10% will be spent on special projects. So converting that then to days, 60% training works out to 126 actual days spent on training. 30% admin works out to 63 days spent on admin. 10% on projects means 21 days are allocated to project work. So now we're going to look at breaking those down. So we're looking at the immediate, the known, the existing projects and priorities. So looking first at training and assessment, and looking at priority 1, which is marking, we're saying the KPI is 300 units a year. So we're saying, yes, we're going to achieve that, and it's going to take us an hour and a half per unit marked to achieve that. So that's 65 days we're going to spend in marking over the year. Second priority is giving feedback to students. And we've said for each of those 300 units achieved over the year, we're going to spend half an hour giving feedback to students, which is another 22 days spent giving feedback. Then we're going to look at priority 3, providing training over the phone to students. And we're going to say each of those students who achieve those 300 units over the year will require half an hour's training to assist them. That's 21 days gone. Priority 4 is face-to-face training. And the assumption here is that only half the students who achieve those 300 units will require that type of training, and they'll get half an hour per unit, so that is 10 days spent on Skype or face-to-face. Finally, priority 5 in terms of training and assessment is resource development, and we've said here that we're going to allocate 8 days a year. So with those allocations, which you must admit are quite modest, we have spent our full 126 days that we have allocated to training and assessment, which now reduces our available days to achieve everything else down to 84. Now we're going to move down a little bit, looking at admin. So admin has 28 days allocated to it. No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. It has 63 days allocated to it. We're looking at emails. We're saying that we will spend 5 hours a week, that's 1 hour a day, on emails, that's going to take up 35 days a year. That'll give us 28 days spent in emails. Urgent requests will take an hour a week. That will use up 7 days a year, reducing our admin days to 21. CASIS and maintaining stats will take 2 hours per week each week. That's 14 days over the year. We now have a balance of 7 days. Blackboard and My Community will take up 2 hours a week. That's 14 days over a year. We're now in the red by 7 days. And meetings, we're assuming that there's only going to be 48 weeks of meetings at 3/4 of a day only. That's 36 days spent in meetings. We are now in the red for admin by 43 days. So taking that 106 off our balance of 84, we're now down to minus 22 days. So we're in the red before we start any projects. Looking at projects and looking at projects conducted for the team. These are things like our Student 21 in Salisbury, which is our personal strategy of how we're going to get our students through their units. And we're saying here that we would allocate an hour and a half per month to that task. That is 3 days. So that reduces our project days to 18. Projects for ourselves, generally things like student-related tip sheets, those sorts of things, 3 hours a month. That'll take up 6 days, reducing our available days for projects down to 12. And then corporate projects, 4 hours a month. That'll take 8 days a year, reducing our available project days to 4. So now, taking those 17 days that we've allocated off, we're now in the red by 39 days. These next 3 boxes are planned activities. So if we look at planned training and assessment, we don't see any major changes or plans coming in there, so we have nothing in there. Admin, we definitely do. In admin, we are planning to do some professional development, maintaining our currency. We've allocated 5 days a year, which brings our progressive total down to minus 48. And our achievement planning and performance management, 2 hours a week, another 4 days a year. So that's 9 days a year that we need on that sort of project work, which brings us to a minus 48 days balance for the year. Further down, we had allocated an additional 4 days to projects that are as yet unallocated. So we do actually have a 4-day credit. And there it is here at the bottom. So if we take that off our minus 48, for this particular year to achieve the KPIs of 25 units per month and do what we currently have in terms of a trainer workload, we're running at minus 44 days. If you think about that in months and think about each month is 20 days work time, that's actually 2 months extra we need to be able to achieve the workload that we are currently carrying.